Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kara, and I'm with the LTAP Center here at ODOT, and I'll be your host for this webinar. Today's webinar is an overview of the Transportation Information Mapping Systems, also known as TIMS, and we're thrilled to have Katy Lewis as our presenter. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items to ensure a smooth webinar experience for everyone. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the questions panel on your screen. You can type your questions there and we'll address them during the Q&A session at the end. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties or have any other issues, please feel free to use the chat panel to communicate with our team, and we'll do our best to assist you. Please note that this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to all registered attendees after the session. All right, with that out of the way, let's get started. It's my pleasure to hand it over to Katy. Katy, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Kara. Again, I'm Katy Lewis. I'm with ODOT's Office of Data Governance, and with me we also have Steve Hale, the GIS manager, to help answer any questions throughout the webinar. And we are going to get started with the brand new TIMS website. So if you are brand new to TIMS, don't worry, this webinar is going to approach this new site just like anyone is a brand new user. But if you've used TIMS before and this looks new, I want to highlight the difference because we still have our old site available. So you don't have to worry about starting from scratch with new workflows. We're able to keep both the old and the new. We're calling the previous version TIMS Classic, and we're able to keep them up both at the same time by having different URLs. So that's what I want to highlight. The classic site is gis.dot.state.oh.us, and you can still use your same bookmarks. It will forward you to TIMS Classic. And the new URL is tims.dot.state.oh.us/TIMS. If you are just Googling ODOT TIMS, a lot of people do that. Note that you'll get both results. So you'll want to look at that URL to be sure you're accessing the new with TIMS or the old with the GIS. So we'll close that down and we'll just focus on this new site. And as you can see, the application is divided into 6 different pages. We're going to try to touch on every page today. We'll spend most of our time in Project Search and Create a Map. So just a quick overview before we dive in. Project Search is where, you guessed it, you can search project information, the heart of everything we do at ODOT. Create a Maps where you can view over 100 layers on the map, and there are lots of tools for working with that data. Standard Maps is where you can access pre-configured PDF map templates and quickly print off a PDF for your area of interest. Map viewers are the same functionality as Create a Map, but we have curated content for specific user groups. Our data glossary combines what used to be separated data glossary and data download pages. And so on this page, you can learn about data sets, get descriptions, see descriptions of all the attributes, find out when that data was last updated, and you can download the full data set in CSV or GIS formats, file geodatabase shapefile, and KML. And then we have a link to the crash data search. We're not going to cover that in today's webinar. This is also known as GCAT, and that crash data that's fed into GCAT is managed by our safety group here at ODOT, and so there are trainings scheduled through them with LTAP. So if you're interested in learning more, you can work with LTAP. Okay, we have the header bar that's going to be visible throughout any page in the site. So we'll just do a quick overview of that. You can link to ODOT's public webpage where you can always find lots more information. Say you're looking for the roadway information manual. it doesn't want to cooperate today, but usually it would populate a list of results and you could link straight to that page and access all kinds of office specific documentation. The TIMS logo will always get you back to this homepage. We'll click that a lot throughout this demo today. We have a login link for the support staff to access administrative tools. The search by PID, a shortcut to pulling up PID information in the project search page. An information and support page with lots of information. You can scroll down or use the navigation buttons on the left. A few things that I want to make sure I point out here. There's a contact link that will initiate an email to tims@dot.ohio.gov. And we always welcome feedback or questions or report any technical difficulties to this email address. We'll go to myself and Steve and other members of our staff to make sure that we can respond quickly. And at the top of this page, there's a link to a PDF user guide. You're welcome to open that up and kind of follow along as we go through the demo here. If I skim over any tools, you'll hopefully find more information here. And we hope in the future to be adding links to short videos, a minute or two, just covering one quick topic. Okay. And our final item is the notification bell. Um, You may see at different times notification banners coming up under the header throughout different pages in TIMS, and you'll be able to X out of those. And I can show you an example here with what we have. Say I was going to access the GCAP page. I've got a banner here. I can close that and I won't see it on this page anymore, but those notifications will still always be available through the notification icon on the header. Okay, and let's show an example of using the search by PID. It'll get us into the project search page, and we'll start from there. So you can see I had some samples. I'm just gonna click that. So I have a project ID. I know exactly what I want information on. I can just type it into that search by PID box, and it's gonna bring me to the project search page filtered to all the locations for that specific PID. We'll reset this page in a sec and start from scratch. But just to note, when you do that, it has basically filtered our project table to just that PID. And if you ever want to clear that filter, there's a button here. But with just the small amount of data, it's good to overview what we can see in this table for each project. So we'll have a couple of main attributes. You can have first of all, I should note that one PID can have multiple records here, right? Because each record's representing a unique work location. So as we scroll over, you'll see it could have its recorded county and district can be different from where the actual work occurs. So we have those separated out. The route type and the route number log and begin and end log points or where that work is occurring on the roadway. And you'll note this first record has a begin log but no end log. The other records have both begin and end, and that's going to be important later when we go to look at this data on the map. So I wanted to point that out now. And then our final category is the primary work category, our final column here. So this project is bridge preservation. Of course, we have a lot more information than just what you see here in this table. So you can click on the PID. You can tell it's highlighted as a link. Click on that link. I'm going to just make sure I open in a new tab so I stay on track here. And it's going to open a project information page with a lot more attributes and information about that project. Again, you can scroll down or you'll find these navigation links on the left side. And I always like to point out that towards the bottom, we have links to the proposal and plan documents through our Office of Contracts and the digital paper application. So you can always easily link to those documents and just get those as a PDF. Okay, so let's clear out that PID filter. And now see, say we had come to this page from scratch, you'll see it's going to load all of the project records that we have coming through. And this is a really good time to pause and read the disclaimer at the top of the page, because say you're looking for a PID that you know is in our LS project database and it's not coming through TIMS. So I'm just going to read out because I think it's that important. The projects that you'll find here in TIMS and that you can search here include projects with funding categories of Ellis Multi-Lane Major Rehab, STIP, Major Bridge, Safety, HSP, Safety, SRTS, Local Programs, and TRAC. 2, those projects are completed, current, or future projects with committed funding. I think they have to have 50% committed funding. And 3, they have a valid work location. So as data is being recorded and managed in the Ellis project database, every night we go out and pull that data. If it meets our criteria, it gets pushed through to TIMS. So if you make a change or a change is made in the project database today, tomorrow, you should see that here in TIMS. Okay, you'll note that it's showing I'm viewing 50 of the full 88,000 records. And the way this table works, they call it pagination. You just keep scrolling down, and once you get to that 50th record, it's going to automatically load an additional 50 records. So we have our filters pane over on the left side, and there's a couple of ways that you can hide that. X out. This filters button will reopen it. And here we have some pre-configured filters to help you narrow down and find the projects that you're looking for. So we can start with a bridge preservation. So that's what we were looking at before. We can say we want to inspect all the bridge preservation projects. You can see that took our 88,000 down to 13,000. We can add fiscal year or calendar year. That is just depends on how it was recorded in the project database. You can type in four-digit year, or you can select from the drop down. So let's take it to 2024. And you can then filter by the location. Remember, the recorded location won't necessarily be the work location. So you have the option to switch between those here. If I picked a district, it is going to filter out that next level. If I want to clear just this section of my filters, there'll be a button. Once a filter is set, that clear button will become visible. Let's go back to our work location. And let's see, I think the project we looked at, it was work locations were in 2 counties, Union and Delaware. So let's say I filtered by Union. You'll see there's the PID that we were looking at before. Of course, I have other bridge preservation work going on there. And if I wanted to repeat that, I could, set the Union County filter for the recorded location, right? And that would pull all of those up. I'm going to clear this just to have some more records to work with and highlight. This is a brand new tool in this new TIMS app. You can filter by route. So you need to start populating this routes by just typing in any portion of an NLF ID. So say I don't know my jurisdiction or whatever the first character is, I can just start with my county code and say I know that I have a US route, and if it was, is it 33? It's going to be 5 characters with leading zeros, so I can just do 33. And that's going to filter that down. And I can choose the cardinal version. It's going to tell me the minimum and maximum valid log points for that route. You could modify those if you wanted. So now it's limited that to just that route. I can add another one. I believe we had some locations for this PID on 750. I think it was a county route. Yes, in Delaware. So now it's going to pull any projects that are on this route or on this route. So I have the additional records there. Um, okay, before we move on, let's demo how we can use this search box. So say I wanted to clear out those route filters, and I just wanted to find all bridge preservation projects in 2024 on, say, Route 33. I can use that format of the routes with the 5 digits with the leading zeros. Enter that here, and it's going to pull up. So as you can see, I'm in different counties, but it's all Route 33, and they're all bridge preservation. So lots of different ways to interact with this page. Of course, I can filter on any of these columns. Um, I searched 33, but I really just want to get these projects that are on US, so I'll skip those first 2 that are a county route. Now I'm going to select these records by checking the box next to each one. Or you can just select all of them and then deselect the ones that you don't want. And hopefully you noticed when I selected records, a new option appeared on the search page. Now I have the button to view in map. That button becomes visible once you have records selected. So that's something to keep in mind. So I think I've covered everything I want to on this page before I flip over. Yeah, okay, let's do it. We're going to click this view and map page. It's going to take us to the create a map page. That is where a lot of the magic happens. We are a web mapping portal, and here is your web map. So we're going to spend a lot of time on this page, but this is a good way to just start with a quick overview. What happens when I send that project information over to my create a map page? So you'll see that I have the locations on the map. It's zoomed to the extent of those locations. And I have a table open with my projects. I'm just now remembering what I was missing. So let's go back quickly to that project search page. And you remember I was talking about, actually I want to do that PID. I was talking about when we have one log point versus a begin and an end log point. So that PID gave me a good example of this. If I select all of these records and view in map, we'll see a difference now. I'm going to have 2 layers, 2 tables open. I'll have linear features and I'll have point features. So when a project location only has a beginning log point, that's going to be mapped with a type of geometry, a point geometry. And just a restriction of GIS, those are going to be separated out by geometry type. So we'll have point geometries in our project points table, linear geometries in the lines table. And you can see in this attribute table, this is all the same information that we were viewing on the project information page. So lots of ways to view the same data. And if I get lucky, the links are here, but whether I'm gonna scroll to the right area, right? But there's an easier way to view, even easier. You can just click on any feature in the map and you're gonna get a pop-up. If you are familiar with the classic version of TIMS, you had to first activate an identify tool that was over here in the layers toolbar. Now you don't have to activate anything. You just click on a feature in a map and you will get the pop-up. Okay, we'll cover more about the features in this attribute table a little later. Before I reset this page and we start from scratch, I want to expand this projects grouping and show you how we have both of those layers turned on here, right? Okay, so let's start fresh from this page and see if this is where you started today. You won't have any attribute tables open. None of the project layers will be turned on. We'll work through that in a minute, but first let's do an overview of this map pane. Just some super basic buttons for zooming in. The home button will get you back to the full extent. Um, you can choose from a gallery of base maps. By default, it should open to our custom base map, or we have some out of base maps to choose from, like Gray Canvas, pretty common. And then we bring in the OSIP imagery, Ohio Statewide Imagery Program. I'm zoomed out to the full extent here, so that's not going to draw, but I actually like to highlight that because we do get a lot of questions, and I'll be zooming in as I talk here. Say someone's um, opened the page or they've walked away, they've come back to the page, and it's just a white screen. The first thing we say to check is your base map. If you're zoomed all the way out and no base maps are loading, try just switching to one of the graphic base maps. Okay, and then we have some tools in the top right corner for finding locations or zooming to specific areas. So this is going to be your address search. And when you click a result from the search box, it will zoom there, give you a little pop-up. I'm going to copy these coordinates so I can use them here in a second. You could just type in a place name. You can just type in coordinates. That'll get us back to that location of central office. Or you can limit the types of searches that or types of results that you're going to get by clicking this drop down arrow and choosing a locator type. So say just very quickly, I can't remember all the counties that are in ODOT District 4. I'm just going to pick District 4 and I can easily just type in a number. It's going to highlight that for me. Or someone's talking about a planning organization, and I'm just not familiar with where that's located. Right, so being able to pick one individual locator helps you target your results to get what you're looking for. There are other ways to get information about locations. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and right click on the map, right? That's brand new if you've used our classic TIMS. Now I can right click anywhere in the map and I see a few options. Right now we're just going to look at this location information. So the location where I right clicked was just kind of in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a field. And in that type of location, I'm going to see coordinates. It's going to attempt to get an address, but of course I'm not really on a road. It's going to tell me what county and what district I'm in. If I right click over a road, I might get more accurate address information. Yeah. If I right click over a definitely a state maintained road, I think the local roads as well, it's going to tell me my NLF ID and my state and county log point. So that's super helpful. If I'm just in an area, I need to quickly get a log point. You just want to make sure that you're right clicking directly over a road. We'll circle back to those other options later because I want to switch over to the layers tab. Let's start putting some data on this map, right? So over 100 layers, we have them grouped by category, assets, environmental projects. You can browse these layers just by expanding all of those groups and scrolling down. But now you can also search these layers. So say I'm looking for, let's do traffic. What layers do I have for traffic? Traffic segments. It's going to take me, expand the group that those layers are found in under roadway information, and take me to that layer with that layer highlighted. And then I can choose to turn that layer on. Again, just a reminder, when any layers are turned on, you can directly click, that's just a standard left click, and see attributes for that layer. A lot of attributes are going to include links to external resources. So like for traffic segments, I can get a link directly to traffic reports. Let's leave that on, clear out my search box, and say, now I want to look at my bridges. So it will take me to the assets grouping expanded and the bridge layer highlighted, so I can turn that on. Okay, and say, okay, before I move on, let's just like do a quick overview so you make sure that you're understanding what's happening when I'm turning layers on and off. So I have a checkbox at my grouping level, right? If I turn this off, I'm not going to see the bridges anymore. If I expand that, I see that bridges are still enabled and I can enable conduits. When I click conduits, it automatically checked that grouping header. So I can turn those two on and off together now, right? Okay. And you'll see next to every layer, there is a vertical ellipsis. I think I've taken to calling this the layer context menu. So you can click on that and get a couple of options. And this is how you're going to open the attribute table. So I can use my pop-up. I can just click on the map on one feature, right? And see all of the attributes for that specific feature. Oh, I know what I wanted to demo too. So if I click where there's just one feature, right, I get this simple pop-up for just that one feature. If I click where there are two layers overlapping, now I'm going to have this drop down. I can switch in between those layers. If I click where there are going to be multiple features of one layer, so let's get like a conglomeration of bridges here. Now you'll see that I have these options at the top is telling me I've selected one of two bridges and I can switch between them. And see if I can get an example of where I have multiple features. So it can show where I'm flipping through features and I'm flipping through layers. There we go. Okay, well, you can have a combination of this drop-down list to switch between layers and the arrows at the top to switch between features. Okay, now let's go back and expand that attribute table. You see how I just minimized it down at the bottom? Click this arrow to bring that back up. And just like we saw with projects, now I'm seeing all of the attributes we have available for all of the features. So I can scroll through it, showing me it's loaded 45,000. Another great thing we're excited about, if you're familiar with TIMS Classic, you had to first initiate a filter to populate the table. So we refer to it as the results table. Now you can open that table and just automatically load all of the features in that table, which we think is really great. A couple of basic functionality to point out in the table. You can set what fields are visible if you needed to for whatever reason. There is an ellipsis context menu here where you can refresh the data. Um, Again, if you remember seeing metadata option and filter data options on the layer context menu. So we'll cover those tools here in a second, but there's two ways of accessing those. You can select individual features, and then you have the ability to zoom to the selection. And you also have the ability to download all of the data that you have visible in the table. A CSV, GDB, KML, or shape. Those are our download formats that are available for all the products. Okay, let's see. We're coming on 10:30. I think we're doing good on time. Let's go ahead and look at that filter tool. I'm going to initiate that filter tool from the bridge layer. It would be the same as if I had initiated it from the attribute table. I'm going to go ahead and close my attribute. Well, I'll leave it open so you can see how when I apply a filter, it affects the table. Okay, so just as an example, let's create an attribute filter. We're going to be building a basic SQL query. So you'll pick your field. Just for an example, I'm going to choose the structure file number, and I'm just going to use that feature that's shown right next to this tool and type in that structure file number. All right, and then you'll want to click the result and click apply. So now that I've applied a filter, it's reflected in the table. I only have that one record. And in the layer list, I have this filter icon next to the layer. I can add additional filters, say if I wanted to pull up 2 structure file numbers. Um, you can choose if you're selecting this structure file number and or using an or operator. I'm going to clear that out and switch over to this spatial view. So here, let's start with geography. Say I just want to pick all of the bridges within a certain area, and I can choose from these types of areas. So let's do a county, and then you'll get your drop down. I think we're in Licking County. Let's just stay there and click out of that list. You can select multiple counties, but once you're done selecting, click Add. And I've applied a brand new filter, so now I have a new selection set in my attribute table. So you can use the geography options to pick an existing boundary, or you can use these draw tools to create your own boundary. So these first few options are going to be to select a graphic once I've drawn one. We're going to use these different draw options so you can do polygon shapes, a linear shape. We're going to do a point, but say I want to drop a point at an intersection and I want to get all the bridges within a mile around that point, right? So I'm going to create a buffer and I have to set my buffer before I draw my shape. So I'm going to enter 1, I'm going to change my unit, and now I'm going to pick my draw tool and just click on the map. Once I have a graphic, I can change by using these select tools. So we just use the point select, grab that graphic, and now I can make it larger or smaller. So I've made it larger. Now to apply that change, I'm just going to click outside of that filter and it's going to refresh. It's supposed to refresh. We're going to pretend it did. Okay, so say I've moved on with my workflow. I needed my screen space, so I closed out my filter data tool, right? And I've closed out my table. Now I want to go back and clear those filters, or I forgot there was a filter on. So my indicator here is going to be that I have this filter icon. And in order to clear that filter, I need to reopen that filter tool from that layer. And it's going to always default to the attribute view, but I can see an indicator that I have a filter applied and the green dot is telling me that it's going to be on the spatial tab. So once I get here, I'll have the clear all button available to me. And if I'm filtering on multiple layers, so let's say we want to open the filter tool for the conduit, I'm going to initiate that tool again from that layer's context menu. I'm only going to have one instance of that filter data tool open at a time. So if I want to switch back and forth, you just reinitiate from that context menu. Okay, let's see. I think that's everything we need to cover for the filter tool. And we've layered search. We've talked about groups. You know what we
Hi,
haven't
Katie.
looked at is the
Can I chime
legend.
in real quick, for one
Yes,
second? So
yes,
the
please.
filter by graphics, I think what was happening there is you had a county filter and a shape filter. So that is essentially working like an OR. So if you cleared your county filter and then drew a shape, it would filter based
Yes,
off of that shape.
yes, thank you.
So
Yes.
there may be some confusion around
Um,
that that we can work to figure out.
yeah, Clearly, I still have a little bit of learning to do, but that makes sense. And that's a good point, that as you're building multiple filters, it will let you combine different filter types. You'll just need to be aware of all the filters that you have set. So thank you, Steve. Yes, legend. So the legend view here at the top of the layers pane is going to refresh as you have layers turned on and off. So if you just want a brief look at what the symbology is representing, you'll want to use your legend. Okay, and I think we're ready to go back to that right-click menu in the map and cover the rest of these options. So say, I'm in an area and I wanted to get some imagery for that area. Of course, we have our OSIP imagery. I want to plug that again. So you could use that as your base map, but if that's not enough information, you can link to some external sites, ODOT PathWeb, and let's click on that first. If you've right-clicked over a road, it is going to take you directly to that road in PathWeb. And PathWeb is our, pavement monitoring group. They drive roads throughout the state on a 2-year cycle, and all of that imagery is loaded here into PathWeb. So this is a public site, and we just make it easier to get to that location by linking it to TIMS. And then the map channel is going to bring together several views of Google Maps just all in one page to make it easy to navigate. So they all work together. Another way to get information about what's going on out in the field. And while we're here in this right-click menu, I want to make sure we don't forget the report an issue option. This is going to initiate an email to that same email address we saw in our information and support page. Now you have to have a default mail program on your PC. You'll see it's opening, and I really didn't want my email to open for you guys, but there you go. It's going to initiate an email to that email address. It's going to give you some prompts like provide us some information about the issue you're seeing in this area. It's going to give us the coordinates of where you clicked, and it's going to give us a smart link. We'll be able to take that link and paste it into our browser, and it'll get us right back to that area with the same layers turned on. And I have another way to demo that shortly, so we'll get to that. Yeah, and actually that does take us over to this toolbar. We kind of skipped over that. It's hidden there over on the left, but we can't expand that. The top button will let us hide and expand that layers pane. We have a few tools if we expand the tools option. And you'll see we have those PathWeb and map channels buttons there as well. So if I activated it from here, it's going to give me this crosshairs icon, letting me know that tool is active, and then I can click on a roadway. So different ways of interacting with those features, and the same for map channels. Okay, so you'll always get that starter page, the add page for map channels, just click view map. We also have a basic measure tool. I'm confident that you guys can figure that out, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. So you can switch between your units. And we have the find log point tool. So another way to interact with log points, we saw before if you right click over a roadway and got your location information, you would see the NLF ID and log point that way so you can report. But say I know my NLF ID and log point, I want to zoom to those areas. You can initiate this tool and filter down your routes. So, and it doesn't really matter what route, but I'm trying to stay on a theme here. I didn't like that. We'll just pick one. So when I pick a route, it's going to zoom to that area, turn off some layers so you can see what it's doing. So you'll see it's highlighted that that full route, Licking County, County Route 3, and it's telling me what my valid minimum maximum log points are. So if I want to zoom to a specific point, I'm going to use my begin log point. Let's say 5. It's going to show me where that is along the route. And if I enter an end log point, it's going to show me that section of that route. Similarly, I can use that with the state LRS. And of course, the difference between county LRS and state LRS is that the state LRS will begin at the southwest portion of the state and continue without restarting until it gets to the northeast corner. With counties, it goes in that same direction, in the cardinal direction, but it's going to reset at every county line, right? And all of our NLF IDs are unique per county. Okay, a few more things over on our toolbar here. There's the ability to print what you're viewing on the map. It's just going to give you a basic print of that page. I'm not going to wait for it to generate today, but you would decide if you wanted to include your layers. And there may still be an issue with this. That's like something for us to configure with these layouts, but you can also do a map only, choose your size, and it's going to give you a PDF. The share tool is going to let you generate one of those smart links like we saw in the email. So if I turn my layers back on and I'm zoomed to this area, I can copy a link, email that off to my friend, and then they'll be able to go directly to that same view, and you guys can continue your conversation looking at the same set of data. Do we wait to see if it loads? It should work. I'm going to let Steve explain that one. Okay. Okay, so we're coming on 10:45. I feel like I've covered all of the features I wanted to make sure I demonstrated here on the Create a Map page. So let's take about 10 minutes, cover the other pages, and then we'll have room for questions at the end.
Hi, Katie. I have
All
one more
right, so,
note about the share tool.
okay.
Is with this
Yes,
new version
please.
of TIMS, if you do filter data, that will come through in
Yeah.
your share. So if you build a query and
Ooh,
share that with a friend, it should come up in your link.
that's excellent. Thank you, Steve. Okay. I was thinking, should I try to demo it again? But you know what? Oh, this is a good time to plug, and we should plug this again at the very end. We're going to have in-person training scheduled coming up soon, one at the end of February, one at the end of March. That will be organized through LTAP, so stay tuned if you really want a longer version, a more in-depth, then you can join us for one of those in-person trainings. So I'm going to navigate to the other pages, this time without going back to my home page. You'll see when I navigate away from the home page, I have this menu drop down, and that's going to give me a link to all of my pages. So a quick look at the standard maps. So these are our pre-configured map templates. By a theme, we'll choose an ADT map. You choose your area of interest, and you can pick your base map. A couple of format options. I think PDF is most common. And then there's going to be 6 different layouts to choose from, portrait or landscape, and then each orientation, there's going to be 3 sizes. There are examples of these layouts if you just wanted to browse through. At the very end of the user guide that you can access from the link in the information support, you can see just some basic examples of each of those options, of each of the map types. I didn't include examples for every single size. So you've given it your options, your preferences. It's compiling all of that on the back end, and then when the map is ready, it'll open. And you'll just save that to your local file system. But you'll see it's going to have a description and the legend. So those are popular for regularly scheduled meetings or looking at projects throughout districts. Okay, our map viewers page, we anticipate this growing a lot. So we have the ability to categorize, and you'll see that through the color coding and then the categories on the left. So say I just wanted to view the ones that were, categorized as being a majority like of assets themes or engineering theme. Each of these map viewers, it has all the same functionality that you see in the Create a Map page, but the layers and the symbology are curated for specific user groups, right? Something to keep in mind. A good example, I think, is the structures viewer. We looked at bridge data earlier, and that is just a massive database with so many different ways to look at that data. So with the structures viewer, minimize that toolbar back over here. With the structures viewer, it's many ways of viewing that same data, and it has different symbology. And I didn't highlight this when we were in our Create a Map page. I've checked on a layer, but you can see the layer name is grayed out. That's letting you know that there's a view extent set. So you have to zoom in just because there are so many features. If you try to draw that at the full extent of Ohio, it would just be a mess on the map. So I'm glad I got the opportunity to point that out. And all the tools are going to work the same. I can open my attribute table. I can open a filter tool. Right? So if you know how to use the Create a Map page, it's worth exploring any of the topics that you're interested in the map viewers. Okay, my absolute favorite, I love some metadata, is the data glossary page. And soon this may include, we may change the title, data glossary and downloads, because this is where you can download the full data sets. Similar action that we've seen in other places in the site. Once you select features, it's going to enable different tools and then those buttons will appear. So once I've selected some data sets from my list, so you can see I've got a list of 116 rows, each row representing a data set. I can select as many as I want and then choose my file format and download those zipped up into a little package. So you can, of course, filter and sort on each of these columns. You can use the search box to find anywhere. It's going to not just the data set name, if it includes your search term, bridge, but if bridge exists in any of the descriptions, that's going to come up as well. So it's another way to discover what kind of data we have available in TIMS. If I want even more information, I can, sticking with bridges today, click the data set name, right? You can tell it's clickable because it's presented as a link. It's going to open the dataset details page. From here, I have another download link where I can download that full dataset, and I'm going to get a description of all of the attributes that are available. So hopefully, if I'm looking for some descriptions of codes, I can start here. Now, if I don't find what I'm looking for, most of these dataset details pages are going to have a hyperlink that's going to take you to the ODOT webpage for whoever owns that data, right? And once I'm here, most likely I can scroll down and find links to, say, the coding guide, which is going to give me the full descriptions of all of those field codes if I need more information. Okay. If I'm missing anything here, I don't think so. Each time that you click one of these dataset names from the glossary page, it is going to open that dataset details page in a new tab, so you can have those open for reference all at the same time. And wow, look at that. We have 10 minutes to go, and I think I've covered everything I want to cover. I have some more ideas if we need to fill the time, but let's check in with Steve and see if we had any questions, or with Kara.
Hi, Katie. I have two things. I do
Okay.
want to note that the share link that you tried earlier, when you are
Yes.
in Create a Map, it looks like you
Yeah.
generated that link before you turned on your layers. So the link was created without any
Ah,
layers turned on. So another,
I needed
I guess,
to.
training workflow thing, but if you enable your layers and zoom in, and then initiate that link, it'll work for you.
Okay. And I do remember seeing the option to update the link. There was a, oh, I see. Click the share button, right?
Yep, so if you copy that,
Okay.
and again, this will work with
That's
filtered data now in the new TIMS.
excellent.
And then one other comment I wanted to share is, can you show how to get to the metadata page from Create a Map?
Yes, thank you. Yes. So one option that I skipped over in the layer context menu, of course, we can open the attributes table, initiate the filter tool, but you can also link directly to that layer's dataset details page. Thank you very much, Steve. Um, that's one of my favorite features. So it makes it very easy to get information and understand more about the data that you're looking at. You can link directly to that dataset details page.
And we did have 2 questions in the chat, Katie.
Okay.
So since we do have more time, if you guys have questions, please put them in the chat and they will forward those along. But the first question was, can you give an example of how a township trustee would use this website? I cannot give specific examples because I'm sure township trustees across the state have different goals and priorities. But generally speaking, I think that TIMS would be a great resource to access statewide transportation data. And hopefully Katie highlighted some of those data sets that might be of value, like projects, traffic counts, bridge data. But it's really a great repository for all the statewide transportation data that we have here at ODOT.
Yeah, sure. And I can add a little bit to that that might hopefully be helpful. Of course, I don't know, what it means to be a township trustee, but I imagine you are interested in a lot of the data or the assets on the roadways in your township. So hopefully some of the tools that we have would make it easier to find that information. Like our search tool, you can limit your search to your township. So say, just because I see that right there on the map, of course, I don't know which one I'm going to, but you can navigate to your township, and then from there, I can start turning on different layers that apply. Under our boundaries, we have information. Like, say, I wanted to know what MPO or rural planning organization applies in my area. You could check to see if that is applicable. Um, of course, you can view all of the assets and filter those to see what is existing in your township. Maybe especially roadway information might be important. The traffic information that we looked at before, traffic growth data. I picked a very small township here, but hopefully you're getting the idea. Um, use my or I could view my pavement condition rating data within my township, get to know more about the road inventory in my township. Of course, just it's really easy to explore all the data. Just turn layers on, and then of course, click on the map to get information about individual attributes. And we have crash data under our safety grouping. Now this is just going to be 3 years worth of crash data, and it's going to be a pared down version of what you would have access to if you were a GCAT user. But you can get a little bit of information and see some trends from the past few years. Actually, this is reminding me of something that I forgot to demo earlier. There's a few more options up here on the top of the layers pane. There's a sketch tool, which if you wanted to add a note or just draw a shape, you can use that tool. It's going to operate kind of similar to these buttons for selecting and creating graphics as we saw in creating a spatial filter earlier. Those sketches will maintain active as long as you're in this browser window. Once you navigate away or close out your page, those are going to be cleared. But then we have this add data tool. This is really powerful, maybe a little bit more advanced for a lot of users. But one of the biggest enhancements that we're most excited about with this new version is now you can paste in published map services. So I've got one handy here. If I copy that link. So say, if you're familiar with REST services or map services, you have a URL that is feeding a web map or whatever that has useful information for you. If you're familiar with that, you can get the URL pasted here and add that to the map and view it alongside all of the TIMS data. So you see up at the top of my layers list, it's created a new grouping, my layers, and it's going to add that layer in. And you have functionality with those layers, right? You can still do a filter. You can still look at that data in the attribute table. Going through the other add data options gives you a ton of functionality. You can even use it as like a converter for different file formats. So say I had a spreadsheet full of addresses. I can load that into the system, choose the data type, make sure I'm picking, so it's read that CSV file, and now I need to tell it which columns in that CSV file to use for locating those addresses. It's going to read it, and then I'm going to click Add Layer. I'll see that now under My Layers. Now that I have this here in TIMS, I can export that as a GDB or a KML or a shapefile. So that's really powerful. There are limits to the sizes of data sets. You can see those highlighted here. I think geocoding, you can do 50 at a time, and uploading your CSVs is there's a limit of 10 megabytes.
Then Katie, we did have one more question that was regarding the project search page. A user asked,
Okay.
when a PID has multiple lines, can you select all, or is our only option to click each one individually? And I think you did demo this.
I may have done it, but it's very powerful. So let's do it again. Just to filter my list down, I'm going to enter that PID that we were working with. You can click this checkbox at the top, and it's going to select all of them. And then I still have the ability to modify individual. But yes, you have that select all button. And there are going to be some limitations on when you're selecting all. So say when I first come to the project search page, it's loading 50 at a time. So if I select those, it's selected 50, right? And I can use my pagination, scroll down, load another 50, and then reset that. So I've got 100 rows. I think the limit's going to be 150. But if we're loading more and more records, there you go. So you're
And
allowed
then
to
we
do
did
100
have
at a time.
one more question came into the chat, Katie. Can you demo how to add annotation directly to the map? It sounds like they are trying the sketch tool and not seeing how that works.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's go back to our map. We're going to open our sketch tool. Now, the key to annotation is you have to add your text before you place your shape. If you use the sketch tool in the classic version of TIMS, it may have been the opposite way. So say I just want to drop a point and I want to call it, my study area. I need to enter that text in first and then choose my graphic type and place that. So I can clear all those out. Say I did a square. And now when I'm working with these polygon graphics, I can select them and easily modify. But you are pretty limited on what you can do with the annotation once it's placed. So the quickest way, if you really needed to change it, would just be to clear out your annotation and try again. Double click.
Thanks, Katie.
So
And
hopefully that was
to
helpful.
follow up on the annotation tool, it's unclear to us how many TIMS users are actually using this type of functionality. So if it is something that you guys use or are interested in, please let us know. We're happy to field enhancement requests and make it better for you guys. So
Yeah. And there is more information on this tool and all of the tools in that user guide. So if you walk away from today's webinar with more questions, check that first. And then, of course, feel free to reach out to us. Remember, you can right click, report an issue, that's going to come to us, or you can go to the information and support page, and there's a contact link there as well. And it's 11 o'clock, so let's see, let's invite Kara back to see if she has any last items before we let you guys go.
Hi, Katie. Thank you so much. I just wanted to thank everyone and thank you, Katie, for sharing your knowledge with us. As I mentioned earlier, excuse me, the recording of this webinar will be shared with all registered attendees. With that being said, thank you all for attending, and we hope you found this webinar informative and engaging. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody.